Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Creatio's webinar. Today, we will be discussing how a leading automotive technology supplier supports aggressive revenue growth with low code. We'll be sharing a real-life success story with a highly valued customer of Creatio today. I'll be joined by the Visteon team and one of my colleagues as we walk through Creatio's low-code capabilities in greater detail. My name is Creatio, and I'll be your host today, and we hope to make this a very interactive discussion. We hope to make this an interactive discussion through a Q&A session throughout the webinar, and we'll provide all registered participants with a recording following the webinar. And we'll answer any unanswered questions offline today. Now, if we just head back one slide here. Thank you very much. As I mentioned previously, my name is Creatio, and I'll be your host today. I'll be guiding the Q&A session later this morning. We're joined by John Binda, a strategic account executive at Creatio, Steve Steinberg, a senior manager of process and tools at Visteon, and Carl Brown, a director of global quote team and commercial business offices at Visteon. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us, and we're looking forward to having you today as you walk through this great discussion. On our agenda for this webinar, we'll first be doing a company and speaker introduction, followed by the automotive industry's new normal. We'll focus on the challenges and the opportunities present. Then we'll talk about low-code technology for automotive industry. We'll share Visteon's success story with Creatio's platform. Then we'll have a discussion about Creatio's low-code platform for process management and CRM, followed by, again, that Q&A discussion that we mentioned earlier. And again, it's important to us that we make this very interactive today. We want to invite you to post all of your questions in the chat section of this webinar, and we hope to get to each of these questions during our Q&A section at the end. Now I'd like to hand it off to Steve Steinberg to give himself a brief introduction. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve, and I've been in the automotive industry for now over 30 years in many different positions with both Ford Motor Company and Visteon. Currently, I'm the senior manager for process and tools. What that means is I own all the business pursuit and quote processes in our company, as well as the tools associated with them, like the Creatio platform. And I also support all the North American-based new business pursuits and quotes. With that, I'd like to turn it over and introduce Carl.
Thank you, Steve. Not quite as much experience as Steve in the automotive sector, only 25, but all through tier one companies, tier one automotive companies, so direct suppliers to the major OEMs, and have had a chance to serve in 3 different continents over the course of my career. I joined Visteon through an acquisition back in 2014, and as mentioned previously, lead both the commercial business office as well as the global quote team activities. So again, very excited to be here. Want to take a chance to briefly introduce you to Visteon. We'll get into a little more detail later, but Visteon is a global automotive technology company on the move. With about 10,000 associates spread across 18 countries, we're a top 5 tier 1 connected car supplier and the largest supplier focused exclusively on cockpit electronics. We're leading the transition to the all digital automotive cockpit and to autonomous driving. These are actually significant automotive trends, but we'll get to trends later in this presentation. Right now, I'd like to hand the microphone over to John to introduce himself and Creatio.
Thanks, Carl. This is John Binda, strategic account executive at Creatio. I've been with Creatio for just about 5 years. And over my career, I've been involved with different CRM vendors and resellers, so I've got a lot of experience in the space. And again, pretty successful track record of introducing Creatio to some enterprise accounts here in North America, and help many companies go through this journey of digital transformation. So I'm happy to be part of the presentation today. And just to give everyone a brief update on Creatio, we're a global organization as well. We have 5 offices around the globe. We have currently over 650 employees in the organization. We also have a network of about 700 partners that provide consulting and implementation services for Creatio, and they are represented in 110 different countries. We also have some great recognition from some of the leading analysts out there, including Gartner and Forrester, and we'll get into more of the details of that further in the presentation.
Okay, well, I'll take it from here, John, then, and thank you, John, and give you a brief introduction to the auto industry to tee things off. The automotive industry is large, whether you look at it from employment, interconnections, or just as a percent of GDP. On an employment perspective, it's about 14 million people are involved in that in Europe, closer to 8 million in the US. From a GDP perspective, a good 10% of China GDP comes from the automotive sector. The US is around 4% and Europe 7%. So again, a very significant part of the economy in all the industrialized parts of the world. And interconnections is quite clear, whether we talk upstream of the actual making of the car, all the way to mining iron ore, to doing those very sophisticated system on chips and very high-tech silicons, the same kind of silicons powering, or even more powerful than the ones in your latest smartphones. And then past the creation of that car, you now have, of course, the repair shops, the dealer network, and moving more and more into mobility services and ecosystems around that, a cloud-hosted ecosystem. So again, just a very, very expansive industry, and one that will be here for decades and decades to come. But just like any large industry, the automotive industry is dynamic and changing in many ways. And what we see here are some top industry trends within automotive. And with a slight advance, you'll see that many of these are the ones where Visteon has areas of excellence. As a pure play cockpit electronics leader, these ones in the boxes are the ones that really matter to us. Autonomous ADAS. ADAS, if you're not familiar, is the advanced driver assistance systems. Clearly that we all want to get to that place where we're not having to touch the steering wheel. Unfortunately, COVID's put a bit of a damper on that with budgets and impacts. That's getting pushed out a little bit further, but that now creates more demand in what the industry would call level 2+ and lower levels of autonomous, where that ADAS is a sweet spot. And we actually have a really good product for that. Regarding the digitization of the cockpit, we're talking here, seamless smartphone car experience, including cost-effective wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, in-vehicle infotainment, fully digital reconfigurable instrument clusters, including 3D, and larger, higher feature and optical performance displays throughout the entire vehicle interior. Going into a bit more detail onto that, where Visteon plays in these trends is on the next slide. We've got a wide product portfolio that is relatively unique in the sense that it's the breadth that we have that is required to really service any area of the automotive cockpit in terms of the electronics, including, as I mentioned, clusters, heads-up displays, cockpit domain controllers. We'll talk about those in a bit, infotainment systems and connectivity, amongst others. These are enabling technologies as we move into areas of even augmented reality and driver monitoring. These will play a key role as the industry moves into more autonomous driving. For that autonomous driving, we have our DriveCore solution that supports various levels of functionality of the autonomous function. We are a top 2 industry player in these display-oriented products, if you narrow it even further. And we're going to experience over 40% CAGR in the next 4 years within the vehicle infotainment system, mainly driven by our Android-based display audio system and cockpit domain controllers, based on some really large new business awards that we've had in our recent history. Overall, as I mentioned earlier, we're in the top 5 in terms of global suppliers for all these products. And going into a bit more specifics how we got there, just in the area of digital clusters, we're market leader there. We've won over $6 billion in lifetime revenue since beginning of January in the space of digital clusters. We are number 1 in that space. In the area of in-vehicle infotainment, we've won about $3 billion in lifetime revenue since beginning of January. If you happen to be on the web, you can look up the VW Play display audio system down there in Brazil. We've launched that. That's now publicly available information, getting rave reviews down there for that, and that'll be spreading across the globe here shortly. We were first to market and our market leader with cockpit domain controllers. These are silver boxes that have very sophisticated silicon system on chips that can control multiple aspects of the vehicle cockpit experience with one chip through a hypervised environment. They're especially well suited for EV and also suited very well for EV as a wireless battery management systems. Both these bring weight reductions, which are so crucial to those vehicles for maximum range. And in the wireless BMS system, battery management system, does bring significant lifetime cost of ownership benefit as well. In the area of scalable autonomous, here with our drive core solution, we do have, again, the right silicon on chips to be able to bring that level of functionality suitable for where the industry is going to be at that point in time. And I'd be remiss not to mention where our success in complex automotive displays. In the area of displays, you could even look up the Nissan Ariya 2021 interior, and that you'll see what I mean by having very complex multiple displays under a single pane of glass with bendure and curvature in there, and the very sleek looking kind of and a very high functionality that brings. Even with these great trends though, and our success within them, as you see here on this slide, the challenges that we have in the industry are significant. Clearly, COVID's not been kind to us. Year-over-year industry volumes are down over 20%. That has been a tremendous disruption in the supply chain. As I mentioned before, our supply chains go several tiers, all the way to the iron ore and the silicons with extremely long lead times. Anyone involved in material planning and logistics knows how complicated those kind of things can be. With the COVID reduction, of course, has become some temporary, let's say, focusing of invest and even some higher cost pressures in that case. The end customer, of course, is always wanting higher feature at a lower cost, just like they're expecting from their phones. And in this case, it's also, as we get more into the vehicle electronics, the same kind of trends. The digital demands we talked about before, that trend in the automotive space, we are one of the leaders in those trends. We're glad to be part of that. But again, the content and the computing power is just ever increasing. The software intensity of the car is staggering, and even more so if you move more into the autonomous space. And I guess maybe not to miss the last one on the far right there, globalization, consolidation of platforms. Clearly, this results in maybe some synergies and some efficiencies as OEMs and vehicle makers source larger chunks of business that cut across vehicle lines versus sourcing individual vehicle lines for certain kinds of systems. But that means if you miss out on one of those big fish, it could be a bit while until you get a chance to go fishing again. So very high stake poker in some of those kind of cases. So you got to really have a good sourcing process internally to be able to prepare for that. And lastly, the regulatory pressure, whether we're talking, of course, CO2 and the emphasis then to battery electric vehicles and or other alternative powertrains. And then even in the area of safety, there's some, Europe, probably one of the more leading regions in both those cases in terms of pushing the envelope, both for the emissions type of regulatory activities as well as safety regulatory activities. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to Corey, who will walk you through a poll on your industry challenges.
Thank you so much, and thanks for leading that great portion of the discussion, gentlemen. So our first question for the poll is, what are the major challenges your company is facing today? We've offered some options here that we'd love for you to select. And while we ask you to select your response to this question, we're going to just take a question from the audience quickly. So gentlemen, our first question today is, how does low code help with improving communications across OEMs, Tier 1, and other suppliers?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Basically, communicating within the environment has been really helped with low code. Basically, it's really allowed us to share data and information with our global teams. Everyone involved has real-time access to the information they require, and they actually receive automated notifications when required. And basically, we also have the sharing of data is enabled to support, similar quotes for other customers around the globe. So the low code has really helped us in the communication in the global environment.
Excellent, thank you, Steve. So let's take a look at our responses that we've received from the poll. So it looks like we have a draw between increasing customer trends and legacy systems, outdated operations, or processes. While we agree that many of these are challenges that we face today, these are obviously two very prevalent ones, especially amidst the current environment. But we'll talk about how to address these major challenges as we move forward with the discussion today.
And I guess I can take it from here. This is John, and Carl, thanks for that overview of Visteon and the industry. Every time I get into a new car, the first thing I see is the cockpit always, and I'm always wondering if the Visteon technology is behind that. I've even had the opportunity to come out and visit your showroom in Detroit and was always very impressed with some of the emerging technology that Visteon's coming up with. So a lot of really exciting stuff. So really, let's focus on how low code can help this industry in this space. Obviously, there's some essential features that come with every low code platform. A lot of it for us is the out of the box functionality that you get with the platform. But then again, it's also the scalability and reusability of the platform, the reporting, the monitoring, and most importantly, the security. But it's really the low code is the drag and drop interface. So you can create new things in minutes as opposed to hours or days in the past. And this is really all a part of the feature set for low code platforms. And what can we create with the low-code platforms? Obviously, one of the things that was mentioned in the survey was customer engagement apps. So customer-facing apps that can allow the customer to interface with the organization. Obviously, as Steve mentioned, business processes can be optimized in any area of the company, always looking for operational efficiencies. And then you can, once you have the data in there, you can start doing AI-based models and machine learning models off of it. And again, always a focus on the UI and the data model you're using, but these are all kind of things you can create with a low-code platform. And then what can we automate? And again, this goes across multiple business units. I know at the Visteon, they use it in a lot of different business units or departments, but the four main focuses are on workflows and business logic. The user interface integrations are always a key part of this as well. And then again, the AI and machine learning algorithms. But you can think of some of the processes you can manage with. It's project management, time management, communication. It's interesting that a lot of our customers actually come up to us and say, can I use it for this? And we say, yes. Will it cost extra? No, because you have the platform. Your employees can be contacts in there. You can automate things like employee onboarding. But again, it goes across multiple business units, including all the ones we mentioned here. So this is a busy slide, but this kind of talks about how low code and CRM can be used for manufacturing and distribution companies. Obviously, we talk about a lot of different pieces of functionality we can tackle on the left. And then you see as you go across the middle, all the different things that can be put together to be automated, to be optimized, and to be developed across all the different sections in a company. So the most important thing is a 360 view of your customer, your partners, and your suppliers. From that, you get into segmentation or providing unified product catalogs across the organization, and then getting to some of the things like the supplier relationship. And as Carl mentioned, how important that is. There's so many different suppliers that come into the auto manufacturing space, managing all those in one system. But again, I think the key is to build processes for these key areas and then optimize those processes moving forward. And again, it's omni-channel. It has the ability to work across multiple job functions, and that's the real power of a low-code platform. So what do we really enable with low-code platforms? I think if we had to sort of draw four big buckets, we'd talk about, what's the challenge? Limited budgets and resources. Everyone these days has limited IT budgets and resources. Even their own staff are being cut. Well, with the low-code drag and drop interface, you can actually make changes to the system very quickly, where in the past you might be relied on IT or a certified partner to come and do that for you. And then again, the second one is siloed systems and customer data. I don't know any organization of any size that doesn't have this issue. And we provide a single platform, no matter what the applications are on top of the platform, to provide a single database. And once you have all that in one place, it makes everyone's life easier. And then, of course, outdated operations and processes. Those are challenges that every organization has, and we can build those workflows very quickly and easily and update them as we need to. And then the last one is personalization and constantly changing customer needs. You have to have a platform that can adapt to those changing requirements and changing needs and anticipate what those needs are going to be in the future. And that's what we do with AI and machine learning tools. So a lot of the people are hearing about today is a citizen developer, and a lot of people are unclear exactly what that is. But it's really talking about how an average business user or stakeholder can actually get in there and work with the platform without having any development skills. So here we talk about the different levels of citizen developers. We have an end user and a power user, and they're going to use the tools that are either low code or no code, and they're going to be typically building apps for individuals and work groups or larger work groups. And then if we move into the developer side of things, of course, they're working with larger projects, departmental or enterprise projects. They can use a mix of low code and pro code. And then at the highest level, you've got the real developers, and we can still do that on top of the platform. We just have a lot of tools that can be used by business users and don't require the coding that's been required in the past. So that's a quick explanation of a citizen developer. These are some interesting statistics, though. When we talk about 65% of apps that are designed to help the users get work done, so they're very much productivity oriented. But interesting enough, too, that 42% of them are built specifically to help the business run more efficiently, and then 27% are actually created with the customer in mind. So they might be customer-facing functionality that has to be built or managed. And these are all great statistics. I think McKinsey came out with a report saying digital transformation can be twice as successful if you give the tools to the business users and let them make the configurations and changes. And that's the real power of a low-code platform. So I think we're heading for another poll here. I think the question here is, what low-code features do you think your company could benefit from the most? And you can vote here, and we'll show those results in just a couple minutes. Do we also want to take a question while we wait for the results? I think maybe while we wait for the results, we can talk about the story at Visteon as we came in trying to lead with CRM. And Visteon, a unique company, they have 50 manufacturers out there, so they figured they knew every one of those manufacturers. They didn't really need CRM. But we found out about the project they had to, and I'm not going to steal from Steve's use case, but to automate their quoting process, and their quotes are multi-million dollars and involve multiple individuals. And we found out a way to automate that part of their business. And now they're finding other ways at Visteon to leverage the platform. But that was the most important part and the biggest job to tackle right out of the gate. And they've been very successful with that.
Yes, John, and we have a question that we can take for the audience while the poll is being established here. But it looks like we've pulled enough results here to say drag and drop interfaces. So let's continue to talk a bit more about Creatio's platform and Visteon's use case moving forward.
So we're going to turn this over to Steve now.
All right, thank you, John. Yeah, we went onto this venture three and a half years ago, where we had multiple challenges with basic goals of trying to double our revenue within 5 years, and of course doing this with the same resources and pursuit efforts, not really doubling our resource effort. And of course, we have business users in 18 countries on 5 continents, so we needed to be able to bring all those people together, and actually to replace basically what we had was a manual quoting process, and we had no CRM solution at all. We just basically, people had their own way of doing things. So as going forward, let's look at the next slide. How do we get to Creatio? Well, we actually had 2 teams working in 2 different directions. One, pursuing a CRM, knowing we needed really a customer relationship management solution for our company, as well as I was involved in trying to get a quote process workflow so that we could digitize our quote process to help leverage and get improve on our goals and meet our goals. And in that, we looked at multiple different tools, including PLM, CPQ type tools, and other tools that would do quote workflow. But basically, we came to the conclusion that best suited because of our customized product portfolio and highly engineered type products, that a BPM type tool actually gave us the best solution where we could actually sort of build our own processes in there. And of course, then bringing together the CRM tool that Creatio brings along with the business process management engine gave us a natural fit where we're actually able to solve, two of these challenges with one tool. And that's what actually led us to Creatio. And so, and actually being able to use the low code to develop many of the processes for our quote workflow solution. Out of the box solutions, basically the out of the box CRM solution with just some minor configurations. It supported our enterprise infrastructure, supporting all our users and around the globe. And actually it met with all our stringent security requirements as well. It met all those requirements. So that's what led us to actually start working with Creatio. And basically, what did we do? We basically started with the out-of-the-box CRM and opportunity management portions of the Creatio platform. We basically just had to do some minor configuring to meet our requirements and that type of thing. And then we also built a customized quote workflow management process. It's probably using the low code, and we do some coding as well. Maybe 100 processes put together to build this entire workflow management solutions. So what we do now is once we actually have an opportunity and we pursue that and we get the RFQ from it, we actually turn that opportunity into a quote, manage that all the way through our quote workflow process. Including we actually will typically do multiple rounds of quoting. We've had some quotes that'll go 5, 6, 7 rounds before you actually, the customer actually will select the customer that's going to be the supplier to be awarded. And so we can actually link all that data together. At the same time, we actually built in the document and approvals from our management. We actually have to, monitor that from all our, audit perspectives and that. And then having this big, vast now array of data with all our opportunities, all our quotes now in the Creatio system, we can actually do a lot of real-time analytics, a lot of time data sharing on all the data, and even get into the forecasting a little bit as well. So how do we do it? Basically, when we started, we actually within about 6 months of when we kicked off the work with Creatio, we actually were able to initially launch this. And this was including the development of at least the phase 1 of our quote workflow application. And then we, over the course of about 3 months, we run around the globe and introduce it into 11 different countries with training, of all our different user base and get them going. We actually have been able to greatly increase the capacity, the amount of quotes we're able to do. And this is how we're able to actually meet the goal of helping to double our revenue with really the same resource level by being able to use this platform to really, one thing is rather than, throw a lot more at it, is rather to just be able to process a lot more and have a lot higher capacity of throughput of quotes to be able to actually win more business and actually meet our goals of doubling our revenue. With that, I think I'd like to turn it back over to Creatio and go more into the low-code platform.
Thank you, Steve. This is John again, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can work with low-code platforms for specifically process management and CRM. So there's kind of 4 key areas when we talk about the Creatio low-code platform, and we start off with the process modeling and documentation, something that Steve's very familiar with, and also we can cover things like application lifecycle management as well. And we give you a lot of tools in there, design tools specifically around the low code side of things to really configure the system. And a lot of times it's just removing clutter that's there that is going to get in the way of someone. And we can really go down to the user level to create specific interfaces for different types of users. And then of course the admin tools where we get assigning users and user rights and privileges. Those are all very important things for Creatio's low code platform. So as far as some of the ready-to-use components, and Steve alluded to this, you can use some of the out-of-the-box functionality that comes with the platform, including global search, approvals, deduplication. That's a key area around data imports and wizards and utilities for that. Of course, analytics, and then tags and filters. So there's a lot of and that what I think makes us a little bit different than some of the other standard BPM tools is we give you a lot of this functionality out of the box. And then we have our marketplace, which is where we have connectors and third-party tools that can enhance the functionality. A lot of it is CTI integration with different connectors like Cisco and Avaya. And then we have some other integrations to other applications or slight enhancements to the platform. And some of those are even free and can be downloaded with one click from our marketplace. We also have modules that are pre-built and ready to go. We talked about some of these already, but contact and account management, product management, even project management, contracts are very important. And then of course you have to have knowledge management and a contact center. And again, a lot of this comes out of the box, which is kind of a head start when you're going down one of these projects, when you're looking to automate just about, as Steve mentioned, over 100 processes. It's helpful to have some of this already out of the box. So we talk about our superpowers here at Creatio. There's kind of three key areas we focus on. The first is a unified CRM platform to do sales, marketing, and service all on one application, all on one database. The middle one is the BPM engine, which is the power that powers everything within the system, but it gives you the ability to change those processes really quickly and manage them. You're always looking to optimize efficiency if you can. So you're going to revisit the workflows, you're going to find out where the bottlenecks are, and that's, again, a key superpower for Creatio. And then the low-code platform, really giving that power to the business users, the analysts that can actually get in there and configure things. So those are the three key areas: unified CRM, the strong BPM engine, and the low-code platform that are really considered our superpowers. And then when you get into the product offering specifically, when we talk about the low-code platform, we talk about the foundation here at the bottom, and that's called our Studio product. That is the low-code platform and the powerful process engine, which drives all the different CRM applications above that. So whether it's sales automation, marketing automation, or service automation, you don't have to start with all three. You can use building blocks to get there, but it's still the same application, still the same database. And then our marketplace, which extends the functionality, it has connectors and add-ons to the platform that can actually extend the functionality of the platform. But it all starts off with the Studio product, which is the low-code platform, and the process engine. Then you can drive efficiencies across any one of these other areas as your needs improve. And I guess most enterprise companies will start with one and then take on all the others. Some smaller companies will replace 3 applications with the platform, but it all depends on the low-code Studio product as the foundation of this product offering. I mentioned some of the analyst recognition. We've been included in a lot of the Forrester Wave reports because of the flexibility of our platform and the fact that we're a CRM and a BPM tool. We appear in several different reports, but these are all available to the public. And on top of Forrester, we also have Gartner as well, and some Magic Quadrants from Gartner. Again, we're in several of these reports. 2 of our proudest accomplishments are probably around CRM lead management and Salesforce automation. We've been selected for the 2nd year in a row as a leader in both those reports, so we're very proud of that. But you can see the breadth of the application. We're included in several of these Magic Quadrants, even more than are on the screen here. But this is just some good validation from the analysts that we're doing the right thing, and we're competing with some big companies in here, but they feel confident that we can meet the task.
Thank you, John. And while we have some viewers on today, we do want to share some exciting news. We will be hosting our Global Accelerate Tour online this year. The event is scheduled to take place on October 28th, 2020, and this will be a live 24-hour event. And we're very excited for our team to try this online format this year. We look forward to a fun and successful 24 hours of nonstop speeches and demonstrations from our employees, our partners, our thought leadership communities, and the event will be hosted in 7 languages to support our global user community, and we would be thrilled to have you join us. So please visit our website to learn more about the event and register online at creatio.com/accelerate. So we'll now move into our Q&A section. So gentlemen, our first question today is the automotive supply chain ready for electric cars?
I think that's a great question. I'll take that one. In terms of that, it is a bit of a chicken and the egg. I'd say basically yes, it is ready. Based on the significant amount of invest required to get there, it is somewhat morphing into more of a collaborative nature with various partnerships being formed across the industry, whether it be maybe for the battery management systems. And here you have maybe two major OEMs dealing, partnering for that, or whether it be in the actual drive mechanisms, or other OEMs partnering there and amongst the supply base as well. So it definitely will occur. It is happening, and the supply chain is ready, but it is a very vast, evolving technology base.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question is, how has the pandemic changed the automotive business?
I'll take that one too, I guess. It really has rocked it, right? In terms of the year-over-year reduction in vehicle volumes, over 20%, an immediate drop. Of course, Q2 was abysmal as the pandemic floated more from a China epicenter and began now to really hit the economies of Europe and the US. And then now, of course, it's global and pandemic. We don't see, and most industry analysts don't see, vehicle volumes of 2019 coming back till potentially as late as 2023. So what does that really drive? Well, it drives definitely a revisiting of vehicle cycle plans by the OEMs, investment plans for some of their mega projects, and let's say the mega technology projects. I sort of hinted to that maybe the world of pure hands-free driving in the mass market application is probably a little later now in time as a result of COVID, but that opens up other opportunities as opposed to maybe original cycle plans of vehicles with more maybe new vehicle introductions. They'll be looking to see what they can do to get maximum value to the end customer through mid-cycle actions or fresh ups or facelifts, as sometimes called in the lingo. And so it's still in that just create opportunities for us to bring, let's say, a more digitized cockpit, but still within the same basic vehicle platform. And that, so again, that does help us, I think, with our journey towards digitization. But those big mega invest type things are probably getting pushed out a bit due to COVID. Clearly, the supply chain dynamics have been very, very challenging to work through based on how extended and how many tiers some of these supply chains go. We've had war rooms. All companies of our size and magnitude have dedicated war rooms in this, different hotspots depending on wave 1, wave 2 throughout the globe. Everything from Guadalajara, Mexico, to the Philippines, to China, to India, right? So it has been probably that was the most immediate impact, and then the more mid to longer term impacts, as referring to before, with delay of major invest and more focus on mid-cycle action enhancements to vehicles versus a lot of brand new vehicle lines.
Thank you so much, Carl. Our next question, which is really just narrowing in on this question that we just discussed, is what is disrupting the automotive industry the most, would you say?
Let me put the COVID topic aside because that's the obvious answer, number one. I would maybe just talk about software, right? The amount of software that is in vehicles today is just exponentially increasing, especially if you start looking at some of these more sophisticated ADAS type systems, these, again, advanced driver assist systems, or advanced in-vehicle infotainment systems. I mean, those two in combination are driving teraflops of computational power and pulling in very sophisticated and high power system on chips or silicons from some of the leading vendors in the world for that. So again, there's a lot of analogies as to, the fact that we got to the moon and back with 1/1000th to get computational power that's now in your typical mid to upper end sedan. So it's staggering the amount of software. And of course, with that comes, again, needing to be able to execute that software. And I think the automotive is still learning how to do that well in some sense. If you look at what might be more often than not warranty topics, it's not as often these days sort of the mechanical type topic. It's maybe a software bug or two. But with the power of things like over-the-air updates, just like you get refreshes on your phone and fresh ups on your apps, that's happening now in the automotive space through, again, firmware over-the-air or software over-the-air updates, where, again, these happen hopefully without you noticing. But in certain topics, sometimes it's done if you bring your car in, they'll give you a reflash of some computer without you even knowing it. But again, that software, just how much more value is coming into the vehicle and the related ecosystems around that. especially in China. They're probably leading in this area, where they have sort of three big players in the ecosystem space, whether it be Tencent, Alibaba, or Baidu, and they sort of have carved out the China market, and they provide a whole suite of experiences through your car into that cloud-hosted ecosystem. Probably Europe will be next, and then the US will follow. But again, that in combination with the software intensity probably are really the biggest, I'll say, disrupting technologies in the automotive space.
Thank you so much. It's a very helpful response for our audience. Our next question is, how can we use low code to personalize the customer experience?
I think when we talk about the customer experience, it's how they interact with the company. And if you can have and you build your processes and your applications with that in mind, that'll increase the interconnectivity you have, or the relationship you have with your customers, and allow them to feel more engaged and all as part of the process, whether they're being sent automatic updates from the system, or they're being allowed to log in as a portal user to access important information that they can manage themselves. That's all part of the customer relationship, and a very important thing for any of these low-code platforms.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Our next question is, how much ownership do OEMs now take across the selling experience?
That's a great question. It definitely varies by region across the globe, and it does vary by OEM. What I can say by and large is that as COVID impacted the industry, the OEMs themselves had to do a little more with their dealers in terms of how to switch what used to be very much of an in-person vehicle purchasing experience into one where they help to provide the dealers the tools, methods to allow that to go a little more online and virtual. So many dealers, of course, would maybe not have those kind of in-house expertise. They're very good at certain things, but maybe not developing, a virtual type of purchase experience. So clearly, the OEMs had to respond to that. One outlier, of course, is really Tesla, who, amongst in many areas, of course, is cited as breaking several molds in the industry. This is one as well, where they are not really going down a dealership route, that they are truly marketing directly to the customer. Now, this creates some interesting challenges for them in certain regions, but in terms of maybe conflict with the typical dealer type approach. But there is an interesting model there, which could become more interesting in the future. But in general, for sure, the COVID did drive the dealers to be more supportive. To drive the OEMs to be more supportive to the dealers with regards to, again, the how to move to more of a virtual purchasing experience and purchasing introduction experience.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carl. Our next question is a great question, really addressing the value of a low-code platform. Does low-code lower costs in a supply chain?
I can probably take that one. It's just, again, creating efficiencies. So in the supply chain, you're always thinking about real time and on demand and things like that. And if you can monitor that and have that as part of your workflows that you build in the system, you can be updated with the interruptions in the supply chain or issues much earlier than you could in the past. And I think that's the power of a tool like this that can bring everything together in one place and then build workflows off any of that updated information to send the necessary alerts to the people that are working in that supply chain. And again, you're looking for the bottlenecks, right? So workflows can identify those bottlenecks, whether in the supply chain or your own internal organization. And once you identify those bottlenecks, you can address them and then move on and make sure they don't happen again. But that's all, there's so many different moving parts in the supply chain. You really need a system like this to manage all those parts and communicate with them directly.
Thank you, John. I believe you actually touched on a response to this next question that we have, but I'm going to present it again now. Do you think enabling business users with low code can relieve a business's IT resources?
I can take a stab at that
sure.
one here. Yeah, actually, it all depends on your use and application, but yes, it can, especially when you're using the citizen developer model or in doing local business processes for, work groups and that, yeah, there's really no IT involvement required. You can develop your own processes and that. But it's even goes the same when you look at a enterprise environment like we're doing here at Visteon. We actually have an enterprise solution where we share this around the globe, yet we have no dedicated IT personnel for this. I'm not part of IT, nor have I ever been, but I do actually manage the Creatio platform and actually work as a system administrator as well. So it's the low-code platform enables that easy use and for basically a non-IT person be able to do some of this work. So it actually can relieve IT resources within the company.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, do you really think it's the right time to invest in low-code development platforms right now?
I think it's kind of interesting. People are always saying that, again, we talked about the COVID situation and how that's causing some issues in a lot of different industries. The quote that I like the most is, when the factory is closed, it's time to paint the factory. So if you're looking for ways to become more efficient, which is being forced by this pandemic, or you're looking to do more with less, which is the same thing, low-code platforms are essential in that area. So enabling stakeholders and power users to get in there, make the configurations, update the workflows that involve them directly is the real power. So the stakeholders are actually getting in there, making the changes that are going to make their lives easier, make things more efficient for their staff and their people, and see better results. But sometimes the time to do it is when things are slower and you have more time. But I would say that, that's probably going back to my quote, when the factory's closed, it's time to paint the factory. Well, it's a good time to revisit all the different workflows you have in an organization and try to figure out ways to optimize those moving forward.
Agree, John, and that's a great analogy. Our next question is, what are the best practices around code governance in these technologies, and how do they support collaborative development?
You're talking about specifically on the platform. When we talk about the development, are we talking about that on the platform? Because Creatio has something that's very interesting. They have our free version of our studio product that allows collaboration on building and designing workflows, and then now you can export those into the enterprise solution to make them actionable. But the collaboration is a key part of it. And as we mentioned for Visteon, some of the people that are involved in their quoting process, it's engineers, it's business people, it's sales people, it's a lot of different moving parts, and they have to manage that all in one workflow. So I think that's a key area where we think that, again, a lot of companies are looking to do more and more of that as well.
Great, thank you, John. And we have a great question in the chat that I think would be great for you to answer, and that is, how does an organization come to know or recognize that they need a low-code technology? Are there any stages to introduce low-code in a company?
Again, it's a timing question, so I don't know if there's ever a perfect time, but some of the signs and signals you can look to is if you are asking your IT department for support and help and it's taking too long, that's when you need to sort of look at low-code technologies. If your outside business environment is changing and changing very rapidly, that's when you need a low-code platform to adjust to those changes and dynamics. So those are some key areas when your platform, your technology has to evolve with the business and with the demand of your customers, but also you have to be less dependent on limited IT resources or for budgets outside resources that have supported you in the past. So those are some signals. If you're waiting too long for IT, you don't have budget to spend on outside resources, you have to do it on your own, that's when low-code technologies come in. And as Steve mentioned earlier, he's not in IT, but he still can be an admin for this because it's low-code and he can get in there and make those changes that he needs to make.
Great, thank you, John. Does the product include RPA?
When we talk about RPA, that's kind of a trend where you can pull data from systems that didn't actually allow you to share data with them. We have a lot of different ways we can integrate with other solutions to pull data in, and RPA is one of them. But you also talk about AI and machine learning. Those are also very popular trends within low-code platforms. And once you have the data in there, as Steve said, you can start analyzing that data and start using it to build forecasts and those type of things. But the data has to be in there to begin with. And again, I think it's just nice to have all that on one database and one application So as you analyze the data, it's coming from one source instead of having it from several sources. But these are all trends within the industry, and they'll continue to evolve. Robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, they're all on the platform today, and we'll continue to evolve that moving forward.
Great, thank you so much, John. And our last question, gentlemen, is Creatio integrated with ERP?
It definitely is in most cases because the ERP system is generally the system of record. But of course, for larger customers, they're using ERP systems like SAP and Oracle, and we have some large implementations of integration going back and forth. But at Visteon too, if you have key things that you're looking for from a quoting perspective, availability of resources, time management, those types of things, it generally involves integration to ERP. So typically, in most cases, depending on the size of the organization, that integration to an ERP system is absolutely required and is generally part of a phase 1 or phase 2 of most implementations.
Great, thank you so much, Carl, Steve, and John for answering these questions today. I hope that we answered all the questions that the audience had from what you have posted in the chat section. We want to remind everyone that we'll follow up with a recording of the webinar today if you did register for this webinar. We also want to remind you that this is part of a larger initiative and series of digital events offered by the Creatio team. We want to offer that you check out our YouTube channel to see previous events and our webpage to see any live upcoming events. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to the Visteon team. Thank you, Carl and Steve, for joining us. This was a great discussion. And thank you to my colleague, John Binda, for leading the discussion today.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Corey.
Thanks, Corey.